We're looking to open up a space where everybody can share knowledge about the outside world and plants and trees and all of that. In no way are we experts, and I think in a large way that's why we really like giving walks and talks like this to our peers, because most of our knowledge has been learned in the past few to several years. You know, we were out in the woods a whole bunch as kids too, but like I've only been studying wild edibles in good detail for like 4 years. We make our livelihood in part off of things we can glean from the forest. We sell wild mushrooms to restaurants and the local farmers market and gather a good amount of our food from the woods. And we really love sharing that knowledge so other people can figure out how they can do similar things. Yeah.
Polypores are certain, I guess you could call it a group of mushrooms. And it's grouped that way because of the way it reproduces. Yeah. And you can look, even though this is kind of a rotten mushroom, it's from last season. If you look on the underside, you can see pores almost like our skin pores. This is technically an edible mushroom when it's fresh. It is not one of the tastiest, and it's a little bit like leather.
So we're in a cool little grove of predominantly tulip poplars right now, also known as yellow poplar. If you look up high in the canopy, you can see the buds on the end of twigs are pretty big. That's one way you can identify poplar. Just the basic look of the bark is another. How exceptionally straight they grow is another. They're one of the fastest growing trees. All those characteristics, being really common, growing really straight, growing really fast, growing really tall, make them awesome tree sit trees. Probably about 70 to 75% of the sits folks with ramps and Climate Ground Zero have pulled off have been in tulip poplars. Tulip poplars and other magnolia trees actually have like full flowers that actually need to be pollinated by insects. Oh. If any of you have had a garden, you've probably weeded a whole bunch of chickweed that's been choking out other things that you're trying to grow to eat. But you can just eat chickweed. Really tasty, nutritious, and it's one of the earliest greens to come up in the springtime. They love fields. If any of you have lawns, you've seen plenty of wild onions. Yeah. You can find them in the winter, you can find them in the early spring. You can eat the greens raw, you can eat the bulbs raw, nutritious, always around, you can always find them. And I really like dehydrating them. I think they make like a really good seasoning after they're dehydrated.
So this looks like chives on the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can use it like chives.
And if you look at a tree and you see something that looks, you know, sort of like this is lichen. Lichen is like a marriage of two organisms. It's actually algae and fungus together. And lichen is a really good indicator of air quality. A lot of folks who are trying to test air quality will test the lichen. Basically what we think of as like the lungs of a tree. Also, wood ears growing on here. This is a jelly fungus. If you want to touch it, it's like jello. And it's edible. And one of the few mushrooms actually edible raw. Most mushrooms, even if they won't make you sick raw, we can't actually fully digest. But wood ears you can. So hopefully we'll find enough today that you can all try them if you desire. Kind of like eating totally flavorless jello.
Yeah, right here on the end are dehydrated wood ears.
I like them better, they're like little
which chips. I really enjoy eating. Any of these little black mushrooms on here are totally safe to eat. They're really well known in Chinese cuisine, often put in like hot and sour soup. You can use the twigs to identify the tree that it's coming from, and see that these are growing on oak twigs. So you can then look around and see where the other oak trees are. And that right there is a big, beautiful oak. And so if you're trying to actually get like enough wood ears to make a really awesome soup, you'd be able to walk in concentric circles around that oak tree, thinking that if one branch has a bunch of wood ears in it, there's a chance around here a good amount others do. I'm pretty sure is a dwarf cinquefoil, also known as Indian strawberry. It has a yellow flower instead of a white flower, and it also gets a little tiny red berry that kind of looks like a strawberry, and it is edible, but it's kind of flavorless.
I have another plant to show you. This is sedum. It's one of the few native succulents. If you don't know what a succulent is, think of like an aloe plant or a jade plant or a cactus. They're plants that hold a lot of water, and this is actually, you know, you could like buy it in Lowe's to keep in a little pot in your house, but you can also just take this and plant it in a little pot in your house.
Yeah, so this is a really big old monster sycamore tree. Obviously older than most of the other trees around. I've already said sycamores sometimes can have morels around them. Keep your eye out, it's getting on morel season. They love really damp, moist areas, thus they're often by riverbanks. It looks like this whole area was clear cut or a field or something of that sort, but this thing was left probably at like medium height as a young tree. And so instead of having to send its energy up to get sunlight, it was able to focus energy in getting really fat at its base and spreading out wide because it didn't have competitors. Poison ivy vines tend to be super hairy.
Are you touching it?
With a rock. Yeah. They're super hairy. The twigs of them don't have the hair, but the vine that wraps around trees generally do. In these woods, there's a lot of grapevines, there's pipe vines, none of which you have to worry about getting sick from, but they don't have the hair like a poison ivy vine does.
Yeah. You can learn a lot from a bird's nest. Like, you know, you can generally tell what kind of bird made it by where it is and what it's made of. Like this one, for example, has pretty much primarily white pine needles and grasses. And a lot of birds like juncos tend to be pretty specific about what they use. And the cool thing about birds' nests is that they're often recycled. So depending on their size, mice will use them and they'll sort of like make a little roof for it. Other birds will use them, rats might use them, squirrels, flying squirrels. Probably one of the next spring edibles to come up are what we call fiddleheads. They're young ferns. And I sort of exposed some right now, but they're not really big enough to eat. But when new fern leaves are growing, they grow in the shape of the head of a fiddle. Like think of a violin, how the neck comes up and curls over. So these will start curled up and they'll come out and expand and become a leaf. And you can kind of already see that shape. And there's an argument among wild foods folks and biologists about which fiddleheads are edible. There's sort of two states of mind. One is that every fiddlehead is edible regardless of the species of fern, as long as you cook it. And the other is that only the ostrich fern fiddlehead is edible. And you can eat it raw and cook it. And I don't know which is right. I eat any fiddlehead I find as long as I cook it. Sometimes I eat them raw, but I don't think they're very good raw. They're really good deep fried.
They're big friendly spiders. They won't screw you up too much. On my backpack right here. They really like river rocks and stuff.
Yeah, they do.
The only spider that would look kind of like this that I'd be worried about would be like a brown recluse or a fiddleback. And instead of like the pattern it has, it would have like a fiddle area. It would look like a little violin on its back, and that's a poisonous spider around here.
I have dear friends who are being poisoned by fracking and mountaintop removal. I have, you know, the best morel patch in the world that's being blasted away. And I strongly encourage you guys to continue deepening relationships with people who you love in this area or your area, wherever you live, and continue deepening relationships you have with the ecosystem and plant species. And when activism or industrial civilization or whatever gets too hard on you, this is a place of strength. Your friends are a place of strength. Your plant friends are a place of strength. And those relationships are invaluable in my opinion, and I hope that you can further develop them and find them to be the same or similar for you. So you guys can cross the creek however you want to. The way I crossed last time, I took my boots off right on the edge of the stones, avoiding the glass. I changed into shorts. So this river is lower right now than when I crossed last. And I went across with this walking stick. Another fun way to cross rivers is to get two friends and just hold on to each other's shoulders and cross in a triad.
I'm liking some lichen.
They bred their children and did their things that geese do. Oh, in cave.
I wonder if animals come and slide my little grandpad right here and
But there's a cave like this that was used in support of a long work stop action in West Virginia. And then it was so hidden that security guards looking for hidden support were standing on top of the cave and pissing off of it while the hidden support for an action was just camped out under there.
Oh, wow.
This is just like, because I used to take ice baths when I was a really serious runner. And just fill a trash can with ice and water. Just stand in it.